Probably everyone. I'm here in Amsterdam, and I'm going to, and apologies for being a little late. I actually was finalizing the code demo for this, and of course, I ended up in dependency hell because I upgraded a package. We've all been there, right? Anyway, so I'm here to talk to you about coding NFTs the right way and deploying your app with IPFS and Filecoin. I know you've had a brief intro on IPFS and Filecoin from Piyush the other day, but I might just do my best to add a little bit of context to maybe some of the things that you heard there, or if you missed it, I'll also give a bit of a high level overview as well. But I will get into the actual code demo because everyone loves to see how to build things and maybe get an idea of what you can build for this awesome hackathon as well. So I'm Ali. I'm a Filecoin developer advocate. I'm originally from Australia, obviously. I used to work at IBM, and I actually knew Jansen from the old days of being a Google student ambassador when I was at university too. So super stoked to be able to participate in Hackmakers, and I'm really passionate about tech for good and making really using our core human values and putting that into tech to make a difference, really, because the tech's a tool in the end. At the end of the day, and we're the humans behind it that are trying to, create a better society for ourselves, or create easier things to do, or even just create more fun in the world. I think those are all cool things to do with tech. So here's a bit of an agenda. I'm going to go through what an NFT is, some NFT properties and use cases, because I really want to get across here throughout this talk that an NFT, a non-fungible token, is not just a JPEG. There's so many uses for it, and I really want to get back down to the properties of an NFT and try and help you to think about how they can be used in heaps of different ways for provenance, for digital identity. It's more than just these funny JPEG memes on the internet, as probably a lot of you know, but there's just so much more to it that you can do with them, and that's why they became such a rage, not just because celebrities are endorsing them everywhere. There's really a really cool underlying use case for them, and we've really only cracked the surface of the iceberg, so to speak, on NFTs, or I think. So I'm going to go through the anatomy of a basic NFT contract based on Solidity, a Solidity contract, which is an Ethereum language. I'm going to talk about why IPFS and Filecoin are kind of essential for NFTs and the non-fungibility side of NFTs anyway. I'm going to have a look at a couple of inspiration projects as well, and give you a live demo. And just if we do have some time, I know it's late, so we might not, but I just want to talk about some of the IPFS and Filecoin social good initiatives that might also be valuable for you to have a look at throughout, when you're hacking this weekend and making, social good projects. So I just want to talk about a few of those if we have a second as well. So like I said, NFTs have become a really big, noisy story in the last year or so. And sometimes it's really hard to break through that noise because there's so much noise out there. There's tweets, there's code, there's everyone shilling some, NFT project. And really, to me, that's not where it is, although NFTs have given rise to these amazing communities and people kind of all coming together because they enjoy this space. But to me, there's a lot more to it. So, just in case you don't know it, probably everyone has had a quick look at this. An NFT is a non-fungible token. So non-fungible tokens are cryptographically unique digital assets, and they can be associated with digital content such as images, video, and that's probably mostly what we've seen, but they can be associated with any kind of content. And so any type of content can be attached to an NFT to prove something. So this means, I went to South by Southwest this year. Super lucky to do that, and I was in the plane on the way there from Melbourne to Austin in Texas, and I was sitting next to a guy in the music industry who managed musicians, and a guy that was in the wine industry. So talking about wine. And what was really surprising to me, because obviously we got chatting about what our jobs were, was that the guy in the music industry had no idea what NFTs were, but the guy in the wine industry was like, yes, this is really helping us prove authenticity of our wines overseas and make, sure that we can, give them a provenance. So that was a super interesting moment for me anyway, and just a complete aside. But back to the NFT properties. So NFTs have these kind of 6 main properties. They're unique, which means it can represent a digital or physical product like a collectible, a house contract, or a vote or a ticket, which is pretty cool. They're provably scarce. So because they've got this traceable origin on the blockchain and backed by this cryptographic hash, and because supply is controlled by the owner or developer, this means you have some great applications for, say, collections of gaming assets, or for limited edition representations of items, or even for like fractional ownership purposes, or they can be used for things like proof of education or attendance purposes. So they have a guaranteed ownership, that this is a property inherited from the blockchain, and ensures traceability and data verifiability of NFTs. And this gives rise to application usage for things like identity and authenticity purposes. And they're also fraud resistant, which is another blockchain inherited trait. That's kind of really a super important thing about NFTs as well. Like, you know, you can prove identity, but still keep ownership of your own identity or your own data. So that's pretty cool. The fourth one is they're fraud proof, as I kind of just mentioned there. Because the NFTs are secured with cryptographic proofs, they can be used in things like voting or, or excuse me, or membership rights, for securing of identity or authenticity, and for legal applications for both digital and physical things. And I used to work at IBM, actually, and I know they're currently using NFTs to ensure the authenticity of patents, as an example. The fifth trait is that they're transferable. NFTs can be transferred, so they can have value inherently attached to them. So like for use cases like asset management or finance records, or heaps of the art and music industry applications we're seeing currently, this transferability is really valuable. And it also means that you can kind of code into these contracts the ability to do royalties, which is another, you know, really important thing. So the original creator of whatever this asset is, say it's music, say it's a video piece, I've got a really cool example of that, can, you know, attach kind of a royalty to this NFT being transferred or used in other projects, and ensure that they get value for the rest of, you know, for that creation that they made and that other people are enjoying and using. The last one is that NFTs are indivisible. So they can be used for things like fractional ownership, kind of like I mentioned before, like in real estate or things like that, which is pretty interesting as well. So these properties really open up a unique opportunity for use cases and applications. And I've written down like kind of a few, off the top of my head, a few of the ways that I've seen NFTs used. So for tickets, certifications, patents, as I mentioned, voting and governance rights, which is pretty interesting, especially in the context of DAOs these days as well. So for those of you that may not know, decentralized autonomous organizations are getting pretty big in Web3 at the moment. And what a lot of these DAOs are trying to accomplish is to create communities that have their own governance, that have their own treasuries, that have you know, their own kind of mission, and they build these communities, and then they as a community decide on what values they want to have, what projects they might want to do. There's a developer DAO, for example, which I'm a part of, and I've just seen so many great things come out of a few of them. But voting and governance rights and DAO tooling is an interesting way that NFTs can be used as well. So there's charity and resale royalties. You've probably read the whole list by now. There's so many that I probably definitely can't list them all. But yeah, just to show you that they're really versatile and that you can do a lot with them. So there's some further thoughts on the convergence of NFTs that I got from a conference I went to recently. They're kind of a convergence of tech and art. Some people are using poetry NFTs and using them for collective collaboration. So I heard of this game where it's like a walking zombie game where you had an NFT in your wallet. You were either a human or a zombie. And if you transferred it to someone that had, say you're a zombie and you transferred your zombie to a human wallet, then that human would turn into a zombie, and it left a trail of people, which is kind of a really unique game with NFTs and kind of cool. And another game I saw recently, I'll talk about that later though. But anyway, there's also a really cool project called neverforgetme.xyz, and maybe I can bring that up. And I'd really encourage you to have a look at this. Never forget this, sorry, .xyz. I'd really encourage you to have a look at this like kind of spoiler video. And by the way, this was backed by IPFS and Filecoin, who I work for. But they're creating a community of filmmakers that use NFTs as the basis for some of their videos. And therefore, if that kind of piece of video is used in something else, they get attached those royalties to it as well. But this is a super cool intro on NFTs if you do want to hear more. And like, just, yeah, it's really good. Anyway, I've got off track as I usually do. But anyway, let's jump into now like kind of the anatomy of an NFT contract, because you probably, a lot of you are devs and you want to see, you know, how do I actually make an NFT? And look, there's easy ways to make NFTs. So you could go to something like OpenSea, for example, and have a look at, whoops, that's the wrong one, sorry. You could go to something like OpenSea, which is a large NFT marketplace, and you could just throw in a JPEG and mint an NFT with the tooling that they have on the front end. But if you want to do something versatile and interesting with your NFTs, then you're probably going to have to code it from scratch. But there are standard templates that you can start out with on the Ethereum network, so on the Solidity language. And the main one here is ERC 721. And you can have a look at these pictures here. I was just trying to get the docs up for this, actually. Where are the docs? They don't make it. Oh, there we go. There we go. Docs. Sweet. Yeah, so if you have a look at Open Zeppelin docs, you can have a look at their NFT contract. Yep, here we go, contracts. So they're updating them all the time as well. So these are the Open Zeppelin NFT contracts. They're security audited, so it's a good place to start. They've got a lot of examples as well, how you can do royalties on here, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I thought I'd just go through and show you that. But one of the major things about NFTs that you do have to be aware of, so here's the ERC 721 kind of API here. It's a constructors put interface. Like there's a lot of like items here, most of which you don't really need depending on your contract. But the major thing here is like if you create an ERC 721 using this contract, you need to implement like a mint function. And as part of that, if you can have a look on this contract, it says function award item address player, string memory token URI. Now, this is kind of the really important and contentious part of, well, not contentious, really important part of NFTs, because basically what a token URI is just some metadata that describes the NFT. So if you have a look at, this is from the Open Zeppelin docs as well, by the way. So if you have a look at this metadata that actually describes the NFT outside of, you know, its block transaction cryptographic proof, it's just metadata. You can have anything in here. And the problem with this is, and especially with this one, this image points to a HTTPS image. And I think if you think about it, if someone doesn't pay for the server that's serving that content, or they want to replace that content with something else, which they totally can, then all of a sudden your NFT is no longer non-fungible. So that image or that video or whatever it is that you're pointing to in this NFT metadata, all of a sudden you've destroyed the fungibility, the non-fungibility of your token, and it's no longer what you said. And there's been some famous rug pulls in the industry because of things like this. So Open Zeppelin isn't silly either. They also write on their docs that, you know, this information, the metadata is pointing to HTTPS, but you should really use IPFS. And the reason you should use IPFS, for those of you that weren't at the intro by Piyush, is because it's designed fundamentally differently to HTTPS calls. So whereas HTTPS kind of routes you to a domain name, so we all know, we look up, HTTP my cool website.com, and that goes through a DNS, a naming server, right? And routes you to the right content. Instead of doing that, what IPFS has done is go, well, actually, each piece of content should be what we're addressing here. Every content is unique. Every content should have its own content ID or CID. So this is exactly what it does. And what's really cool about this, and what it's such an elegant and simple solution, what's really cool about this is it then allows distributed um, kind of retrieval or storing of your CIDs, and you're not deduplicating them. You're not doubling up on where they're stored, because one CID is always going to point to the exact same piece of content. If you have an image and you change one pixel in it, you will get a different CID out of it. So they're like fingerprints. Um, so IPFS is, this really amazing protocol, and not a blockchain, by the way, just a protocol, much like HTTP is a protocol, but working on the fundamental point that, we're addressing by content rather than addressing by a domain routing name. It's also a peer-to-peer data transfer layer. It does retrieval and storage. But, I think for anyone that's maybe torrented or understands torrenting, I think we all do, we've seen it before. At a certain point, you run out of seeders or run out of nodes that will be able to give you that data back. So this is kind of where IPFS, unless someone's running these nodes altruistically and storing all this data, or maybe you're paying them to store your particular piece of data. So unless you're doing that, then you're potentially going to lose the ability to retrieve these CIDs. You'll never lose the CID, like that's always going to be the same. You'll always be able to reconstruct the same image, but you might not be able to retrieve it from the IPFS network if there's not seeders or nodes to give it back to you. So there were early on, before Filecoin, some things that would pin that for you, or you can pay them to keep that data, like Pinata. But we don't like centralization here, so instead, Protocol Labs built Filecoin, which is designed specifically for distributed persistent data. So it's an incentivization blockchain designed, and protocol designed to store large data, and designed to make sure that, we distribute this data and that it's always available. So people are incentivized to keep data around. And while these two are complementary, they're totally separate. So you can use IPFS with any other storage method. You could upload to AWS or anything else if you wanted to go that way. But I'm in Web3 and I appreciate the distributed storage model. I don't want central locations where my data is like getting used and sold. So this is exactly what Filecoin is designed to do. And in terms of NFTs, because I probably got off track again. Sorry, I just checked the time there. Whoops. In terms of NFTs, you can kind of see, if we go back to that example of the metadata, why that's important, because the NFT just has this like metadata attached to it. So unless you're storing that on chain, which you can do, and storing that on chain, that's a good option. Storing that on chain on Ethereum, though, would be crazy. Storing it on Polygon, not as bad, because they've got they're a layer 2, which gives you that kind of value of cheap transactions. But still, if you've got mass amounts of data, it just gets very unwieldy to store that. So the idea here is that you will address it by an IPFS CID, which makes it non-fungible, and store it on something like Filecoin, which is a distributed network designed exactly for this. So that's what I've said here. You need a fixed address. You need to need storage consistent and reliable, and that's where Filecoin comes in. So there are some really easy dev tools that help you do this. And honestly, there, as you'll see in the quick demo, you'll see you just need to get an API key for them, write them into your front end code, and you're good to go pretty much. So this is kind of the project, except not for South by Southwest, but this is kind of the project that I've made to demonstrate that. And you can see it here, actually. I'm just running this on the local host at the moment, but I do have it deployed elsewhere as well. And I'll show you how I deployed that. But I'm just basically running this little demo here. I'll just connect to my wallet. Hopefully I remember my password. Guess not. Oh, there we go. And this is a dev wallet, by the way. Never use your real MetaMask wallet for creating dev things. If you do have one, that's very dangerous. So this is a dev wallet. And I've just made this little example demo that if you type in your name, so let's make a NFT for Jansen, for example. I'm going to put his name in and I'm going to mint an NFT. And in the background, well, let's have a look at what this code is doing in the background, actually. So here's my React app. So I've made some contracts, which, whoops, Sorry about that. What's going on? Oops, I've lost my screen. I think everyone's seeing everything now. Let's flick back to here. Usually it would come up here. Oh, I'm on the main net instead of the test net. So anyway, you get the idea, and I'll change that in a second. Let's go back to the actual code. So in this code, which by the way, I have a GitHub repository for, you can just download it, fork it, whatever you want to do, and build off the top of that if you like. Make it easy for yourself. But basically, this app is made up out of, and I wonder if I have an example of the actual. I don't think I do have an example of the architecture. But basically all I've done with this app is I've got a React front end. I've got my Ethereum contracts on the back end. I'm using a service to connect to the Ethereum nodes, and I'm just using Ringpy testnet for this. So it's free ETH basically. But you could also connect to the Polygon network, which might be cool for this hack. And it's pretty easy to connect to the Polygon network. If you're going to do that, I'd suggest trying out something like Moralis.io, because they offer a speedy node to connect you to the Polygon network. So this is Moralis here. Awesome team, make everything super simple. So if you did want to connect to the Polygon network, that might be a way to go with creating your NFTs. But anyway, so React, a node connector, which is just another API call. Basically, I'm using Hardhat as my configuration for that, which is an Ethereum. It helps you develop in Ethereum. So I guess kind of like a framework for Ethereum. So this is just my Hardhat configuration. I'm connecting to the Ringpy network here. I've got my contracts, which it's not all of those, but let's say, so it's just a basic contract, basically taking that straight off the ERC 721 open template contract. I'm importing it at the top here. I'm also limiting the number of NFTs, which is why I've got the counter function in here. And sorry, if there is any questions, I will get to them at the end. And if you do have any questions, I'll hang around and make sure I answer all those as well. So I'm just creating, this NFT, pretty basic contract, really. Here's my constructor, creating that ERC 721. I'm giving it a name, Filecoin Starter NFTs. Well, this one says NFT Hack 2022, but I, changed that to Hackmakers. And then I'm setting my max number of NFTs to mint to 100. So there won't be any more given out after that 100 is hit. So then to mint my NFT, I basically pass in from my front end this IPFS URI, which is the token URL that we want to use. It's the metadata. And then I mint it and set it, and then increment the number of tokens. And it's really as simple as that in the back-end contract. So really cool if you're a front-end developer. You can pretty much just get this free back-end by learning a little bit of Solidity, which is what I was. So that's fun for me. Let me see, where was I? So connecting that on the front end, go to source. So to store, what we're here to talk about is storing that metadata as well. And to do that, I am using a dev tool called NFT.Storage. And it is awesome. Super simple. It's built basically to give you, so this is it here. You can basically sign up for an API key super simply. And then you'll have all your data coming through, like great docs as well. They'll tell you how to use it, but yeah, really easy to use. But the important thing to note about NFT.Storage is, it gives you the immutability of IPFS. So it gives you that CID, and then it goes and stores whatever you send to it on Filecoin. So it makes deals to store that permanently for you. And it does this with 8 times redundancy. So it's super resilient. You're not just storing this on one instant on AWS, you're storing it in 8 places, and it's totally free to use. So this is a really great product that the teams put out to make using IPFS and Filecoin super easy. So to do that in here, I'm importing NFT.Storage into my front-end React app. And then I'll go down to my function where I'm actually storing to NFT.Storage. Just close all of these. These functions are just wallet connectors. So, I can connect to the chain through the browser through MetaMask. So create NFT data. So when I click on in my front end here, and I'll just refresh the page and it won't mint. When I click on mint NFT here after I put my name in, my front end, grabs that name and goes to this function called create NFT data. And this is where I'm saving the metadata of that NFT. So saving the SVG that I create and the other metadata to NFT.Storage. So you can see it's pretty easy. I'm using a base SVG file, which is kind of this little image you get up down to the bottom here, which I've created a little Hackmakers one. And then adding the name to that SVG. And then I'm sending it through to NFT.Storage with like a client.store function. So anyone that's familiar with JavaScript probably can see how simple this is. So and for the, you probably noticed as well that this is exactly the same as that original metadata I showed you. It's got a name. So it's just a JSON. It's got a name, it's got a description, it's got an image, and then like I've given a trait of awesomeness 100, but you could add like different traits there, or make that variable. You can add all sorts of things to your metadata there. So then after I get the metadata, I'm just sending a little message to my front end to show that we've created that IPFS CID. And I'll just change my wallet over actually, if I can. Just reject that one. Thank you for telling me to protect my funds. Alrighty, so let's try it with my Rinkeby testnet wallet. Jansen, we'll try doing your name again here. So yeah, these are the functions that I've showed you. As you can see, I've kind of played with this a little bit already, or this one contract already. So there's only 46 NFTs left. But basically, before I even hit confirm, like I've saved this metadata to NFT.Storage. And when I do confirm it, that's when it will actually get minted on the blockchain. Did I confirm that? I don't know what's going on there. Let's just confirm that transaction. Awesome. So that's when it actually, my blockchain contract takes that token URI that I've saved to NFT.Storage and actually creates an NFT. I do that afterwards. I'm just passing the token URI to the blockchain. I can also see the IPFS image link. And what's interesting is, so IPFS and HTTP, you can't just view them. So you need to use a bridge to access a bridge or a IPFS enabled browser like Brave to access this image. But you can see it, I don't know if you can see, it's pretty small. But at the top there, this is the cryptographic hash that we've created for this image. And then I'm just using a gateway. And at the moment, I'm just using ipfs.dweb.link gateway. But NFT.Storage has actually just released a gateway that is super fast. So I'd recommend changing my code to use the NFT.Storage gateway. And you can see your image already on IPFS, and that was before even the token was minted. So now I've actually minted the token. I can have a look at my transaction on Etherscan, which is the block explorer. I can see my NFT on OpenSea as well. Probably won't quite be up yet. It takes a while for OpenSea to get the transactions off the blockchain and show it on OpenSea, but I'll open that link for just at the end of the thing to show you that. But it is here. The image just hasn't arrived yet, kind of thing. Anyway, so that's pretty simple. We've minted an NFT. How cool is that? Jansen, you've got your own NFT. I'll send it to you on Rinkeby. Just kidding. But it's really is that simple. And I think I'm probably running pretty low on time here. And here's that, sorry, I'll just describe. So here's the function where I interact with my contract and mint the actual NFT. So straight after I send it to NFT.Storage, I mint the NFT by connecting to my contract. And I do that through a JavaScript library called Ethers. If you are interested in that, I'm just displaying here on the front end the kind of links to go and see that NFT. That's pretty much all there is to that function. Now, the other maybe main thing that you might want to see is how we retrieve these images down the bottom. So I'm going through the contract and looking at the most recent NFTs that have been creating and kind of displaying them at the bottom here. And to do that, I'm connecting to the contract, getting the addresses of those NFTs, and then I am creating that image URL. So like I mentioned before, you need a gateway to see this on browsers that aren't IPFS enabled. So this is kind of my function, which is a bit of a hack for creating that image to view on the front end. So you can have a look again. I'll send you this GitHub and you can have a look at how I've done that. Any questions, please let me know, or just raise an issue in the GitHub as well. So yeah, and here's my Fetch NFT collection. Like I said, just connecting to the events that are happening on my contract to get those, and then yeah, laying them out. So hopefully that's giving you a bit of an understanding of how you would go about creating your own NFT collection and all the sorts of things you could do with that, or giving you an understanding of some of the tooling in the ecosystem you could use for that as well. The last thing I probably want to get across to you is that I've actually deployed this application on Fleek. So what's cool about Fleek is that it's like a deployment. Let me just see if I can sign in. Hopefully I can. It's a deployment platform, much like Netlify or Vercel. But the cool thing about it is that it hosts on IPFS. So I have actually deployed a lot of these. Maybe I can even you can go and get a South by Southwest token. I can send that one to you guys. But what's cool about this is obviously just grabbing from my GitHub branch and it redeploys. But the cool thing is it's hosted on IPFS. So instead of hosting on like those AWS or anything, you can have a verifiable record on IPFS of your hosts. So I just wanted to, and also another cool thing about Fleek is that if you do have an ENS name, an Ethereum name, you can also set Fleek up to deploy to that address as well, for those of you that might know what that is. If not, totally fine. So other storage tools, if you're not using NFT, you're not making an NFT project, another tool that might be of interest to you is Web3.Storage, which is for all sorts of files. So you can use NFT.Storage for it, but it's not really designed for big amounts or massive amounts of data, whereas NFT.Storage is designed for that. Okay, cool. I'm just going to check in with the StreamYard chat, actually. No questions in here, maybe? It's fun. Well, thank you for all the love, everyone. How cool is this stream? No, I can see myself like, is it the Matrix? Just kidding. All right. So I just want to, before I go, because I think I maybe have a few minutes, one of the things that really attracted me to working at IPFS and Filecoin, and they kind of come under the umbrella company of Protocol Labs, is that, we are really passionate about, creating value. And if you listen to any of our CEOs' talks, our CEO is Juan Bene, you'll find that he gets excited about building technology that can really help people, that can really open up the web, that can give them back their data sovereignty, and that can give them, funding to do the right, like kind of redistribute things to be pivoted towards value and not just, that person has money, so they're going to make more and more money, which is kind of where we're going. But so there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening in Web3 around regen DAOs. So, this funding the commons kind of using crypto incentives to fund the commons, or to, trying to just like create incentive methods that give us a fairer world, basically. And anyway, so data is a massive part of that picture, though, as well, because if we don't have decentralized data systems that are kind of censorship resistant, and that, where we own our data, then we keep becoming the product a little bit. So that's one of the things that kind of attracted me to that. And so there's heaps of people using IPFS and Filecoin, but I'll get back to that in a second. I've gone off on a different tangent. But yeah, I wanted to get across to you that we do have a lot of social good initiatives at IPFS and Filecoin. And one of those includes Filecoin Green, which is sustainability. So we're not just trying to make our chain sustainable. So we're not just trying to make Filecoin itself a green product, but what we're trying to do is create tools, because blockchain is a unique way of tracking and giving transparency to everything. So what we're trying to do is create tools that everyone can use to really track green data, and that's more and more important now. And even coming from government mandates that you need to be able to track your energy usage in things, and it's a really hard problem to do. And there's a lot of issues in this model, including carbon credits and carbon offsets. They're not a very good way to do things, and a lot of the time they're being bought 3 or 4 times. So really, it's not a carbon offset at all, and it's really the wrong incentivization model. So there's something out there called an ESA, which instead of you can use as much energy as you want as long as you offset it with a carbon credit. Instead of that, it incentivizes using green energy from in the first place. But if you do want to know more about the Filecoin Green initiative and things like that, check out at Filecoin Green on Twitter. They've also got a really cool energy data API example, which might be great for coding here. So if you do want to do something with the energy API that Filecoin Green's put out, I will give all the links out to Jansen or in the Discord after this as well. You can check out that API example, and maybe you can do something cool with that data that we're collecting. As I mentioned, Juan Benet, our CEO, is super inspired or super passionate about funding the commons. So we have a bunch of funding the commons video out, and he just did one at ETH Amsterdam, actually, which is why I'm here. For Shelling Point, which you can probably find on YouTube, and find out more about that project and maybe get some ideas on how you can use crypto incentives to kind of power a different model, a different way of working and living as well. So definitely check out that. And the last one I want to mention is the Filecoin Foundation for the Decentralized Web, which is FFDW, which is our nonprofit arm dedicated to education and the storage of important data sets. So I've kind of gone through this all already, hopefully on time. But yeah, the Filecoin Foundation for the Decentralized Web is really like making it free for people to put like important things like climate, satellite images, or like here we go. Here's some of the use cases. So the Starling Labs has put some things on there from the testimonies of genocide survivors, for example, that's stored on Filecoin. Internet Archive collaborated with us to store massive amounts of data from the presidential elections in America, which is pretty interesting. We're also working with some of our Ukrainian storage providers to make sure that we can store important information that's happening over there and not lose it, because that was, really a big problem in the Second World War. So we're trying to, help with things like that as well. And as I said, we're always we love storing scientific data or climate data to take stewardship of that and make sure that, we don't lose this kind of important data in our world as well. So thank you so much for tuning into me. It meant a lot, as you would say. I will get all the links out to you. If you have any questions, maybe we'll take it now. And I do want to leave you with this quote: "The best way to predict the future is to create it." It's one of my favorite quotes. So hopefully you've learned a little bit here, and I really appreciate being able to talk to you guys and hopefully share what I've been doing and share what I'm passionate about at the moment. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, or we're going to get this really weird thing again. but thank you so much, everyone. All right, there we go. Okay, it looks like we've got some questions.